Happy New Year and welcome to this BE seminar series on mental health. So my name is Dane and I'll be leading you through this topic today. So today we'll be discussing a range of things. We'll be looking at what mental health is. We'll be looking at what stress is. We'll be looking at what anxiety is, low mood, and then we'll talk a bit about confidence as well as goal setting. As usual, there are a range of tasks. Where you see the red 5 icon, remember to pause the video after the task and take 5 minutes to discuss the task before continuing. So, firstly, let's start with a question in 2s and 3s. Please take 5 minutes to discuss what does mental health mean to you. Do you know anyone that has mental health problems? If so, perhaps share it with the group if you feel it's reasonable. Remember, you can hide names if you don't want to use them. So take 5 minutes and pause the video if you need to. So mental health can mean many things to many people. This is what the World Health Organization defines mental health as. So World Health Organization defines mental health as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential and can cope with the normal stress of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So that's what the definition is. So let's break that down. What does that really mean? Well, a state of well-being, well, that makes sense, in which every individual realizes his or her own potential. So that's an important one. So someone who knows what they can do, what they can achieve, that they can cope with what's seen as normal stresses of life. So potentially for you guys, as normal stresses might be a range of things that we'll come back to, many that you'll share with each other, but there will be some things that one of you will have whereas the other cannot relate to that at all. So remember, it can be anything. They need to be able to work productively and fruitfully. So that means that whatever is going on, that they can cope with it enough that they can work well. So if you're starting to find that your schoolwork, your basketball, other things being affected, then obviously you're not coping. And is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So that's a critical point to make. So it's that contribution, being able to do something, feeling a part, that is also important. So it's a really interesting definition of mental health, and it's very wide ranging. It covers a lot of things. So mental health at the moment is a big topic, and it's a big problem in the UK. So this infographic is quite interesting. So let's talk about a few of them in turn. As with all these seminars, what we're really trying to get across to you is to try and broaden your horizons, trying to kind of really help you improve your well-being by making you more aware of key topics. So mental health is really critical at this point in time. So I wanted to share with you some facts about mental health. So 1 in 4 people in Britain will experience a mental health problem at any given time. 1 in 10 people will experience a mental health problem in total in terms of young people. And interestingly, many people, so over a quarter of people, will wait over a year to tell their family they even have a mental health problem. So people tend to be embarrassed about this. People tend not to talk about it, and it tends to affect a lot of people in the UK. So it's definitely time to talk, and it's definitely time to change on this really important topic. And that's what we want to try and get across to you here at Basketball England. So let's have a look at stress. So stress is a really common problem. Everyone has competing stresses. For you, this might be school, it might be basketball, it might be a range of things. It could be other things such as family or health. It could be potentially finances for some people. Could be a range of issues. It could be bullying. It could be something else entirely. Stresses are going to be different for different people, but there will be some commonalities. Most of you will have the stresses that come with school, maybe with basketball, in common. Now, if you really look at this diagram, it's a balancing act. There's lots of different competing things. While one of them on their own might not cause you a lot of stress, if you start to balance many balls on that pyramid, you might find that it's starting to become unstable. Each little thing knocks you off that little bit more, become a little bit more stressed, and that tends to impact on many things for you. So take 5 minutes again in 2s and 3s. And I guess I want to know, what makes you stressed? What are the things that stress you at the moment? Could be in any part of your life, not just basketball. And what are the good strategies that you use to manage your stress? So obviously these are things you've had for a while potentially. So how do you try and manage them? What do you do? How do you stop yourself getting worse in terms of your stress? How do you harness that? How do you use that stress? So again, take 5 minutes in 2s or 3s and discuss what makes you stress. Try and identify what those are, and then try and work out, what do you currently do to try and manage that? Or be honest and say, well, actually, you know what, this is something I don't manage well, and potentially the other person could give you some tips or thoughts about how you could manage it. So take 5 minutes, pause the video here. Okay, so let's now talk about anxiety. Well, everyone gets anxious now and again. It's normal almost. But let's start with this quote by Kobe Bryant. If you're afraid to fail, then you're probably going to fail. Now, what does this quote mean to you? What is he really trying to say? So again, take a few minutes to discuss in 2s and 3s what you feel this means to you. So again, pause the video. Hopefully you had some interesting thoughts around that quote. Going on from there, our next task for 5 minutes is, what I really want you to do is discuss a time when you were anxious. So, what happened? How did you manage it? What strategies did you use when you were anxious? How did you stop yourself from getting more anxious? Or if you knew it was coming on, how did you stop it from happening? What do you get most anxious about? So out of all the things you do get anxious about, what is the most important thing to you that makes you anxious the most often? And then have a think about these questions. So how do you manage it? What are your strategies? And how do you stop yourself getting anxious? So do discuss this in 2s and 3s. Again, the whole point of this is for you to analyze how you are and what's happening. And the more you have insight and the more you understand it and recognize it, the more you can manage it. Also, it helps you to get support from your peer group, so your friends, your teammates, and get other ideas on how you can manage it. So again, pause the video and discuss the following. So in terms of low mood, well, again, just like anxiety, everyone gets low mood from time to time. Perhaps you lost a match, perhaps you didn't get picked, perhaps you didn't get many minutes, or perhaps there's nothing to do with basketball at all. But in your groups, what I'd like you to do is share a time where you felt low. What happened, and how did you overcome it? And if you didn't overcome it, what did you try perhaps? What didn't work and what could you try next? Now, these are all critical parts of exploring how you feel and how you can improve it in the future. So again, take 5 minutes to think about this. So moving forward is always a challenge. And if there's doubt, if there's anxiety, if there's stress, if your mood is variable, then all of these things can be a challenge and can stop you moving forwards. You know, most people would say focus and confidence are key to moving past these issues. Now, the basketball god that is Michael Jordan made this quote, so I'm going to read it out to you. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. So that's a really well-known quote by Michael Jordan. Again, I guess, this is really him trying to explain failing and his mindset for succeeding. Confidence is really critical, and our challenge is to work out how we work on our own confidence. How do we improve it, and what can we do to harness that? You only have to look at these two. So you've got Kyrie and LeBron, two great players, both with bags and bags of confidence. What is it they do? How do they become that confident? How do they control that? So again, take 5 minutes. And what I'd like to know in your 2s and 3s is, how can you work on your confidence? What are the things you need to do to make yourself more confident as a player? So moving on from that, hopefully you had an idea of what strategies or things you could do. Now, to really truly make changes, goal setting is critically important. So goal setting is all about making goals that are going to work for you. So not just saying, I'm going to do this or come up with something. It's being very specific about how you're going to do it, how you're going to measure it, what time you're going to do it, and all of those really key details. So we normally talk about goal setting in terms of creating a SMART goal. So the S stands for specific goal, M for measurable. So S, how specific is it? What do you want to do? Well, maybe it's, I want to cut down the amount of chocolate I eat. So that's the specific goal. Measurable, well, I'm going to cut it down by 50%. And I'm going to measure it by doing a food diary. Is it attainable? I think 50% is attainable. So this is more subjective, or, you need to know the person to know, can they do that? So that's attainable. Attainable being, can they do it? R for realistic. Is it a realistic goal? So, a little bit of crossover there. And then T, time frame. How much time do they need to do that? So maybe it's going to take me 2 months to cut down my chocolate by 50%, but that would be kind of a goal that I would set myself that I thought was realistic. So that's a SMART goal as an example. So what I'd like you to do now is take 5 minutes, have a think first of all for yourself, and set one key goal that you need to do to improve your confidence. So what is it you need to do? And then I want you to do it in a SMART format. So be specific about what it is. Then write your measurable, how you're going to measure it, and how often you're going to measure it. then is it attainable? Is it realistic? And what's the time frame that you're going to do this in? So that completes goal setting. So remember, with goal setting, the goal that you've just set, have a think, discuss it with your coaches or with other friends and players as well, and with your family. How can you implement this goal? How can you make this goal a reality? And who do you need help from to make this goal a reality? Get them involved. So that gives you a quick overview of mental health. So we've talked about a range of things. Now, mental health is really important. There's lots going on with school, basketball and everything else, and it's normal to have all these different feelings. The main thing is we need to be in control of them. We need to not let it dictate us. And if it's starting to encroach or bother you or stop you doing what you need to do, then we need to talk about it. We need to seek help early. So that means, coming and talking to friends, family, coaches, so that we can support you. So that completes this seminar series on mental health. Till the next time, I'll see you in a month.